In this video, it is the Redcat Custom Hauler. It's time to get this thing to lay frame. They designed it to where you can put a couple servos in and actually control the ride height and actually set it all the way down on the ground. If you are getting this truck, I think this is almost a must-have. There's just this simple thing, 2 servos plus a Y harness. It's RER23393. I'll have a link to it down in the video description. Everything else that you need is already with the truck. So 2 servos and a Y harness, and you can make this thing lay down. So I'm going to show you in this video step by step what it takes to actually get this to work. The first step is getting all of this off the chassis. You got to get the body and the bed. The good news is the body is actually fairly simple. You just have 4 body clips here and then that comes off. The bed here, a little bit more. 16 screws. You have 4 back here on each side, top and bottom, and then you have 4 here, top and bottom. With that, the bed's still not loose, so now we have 4 more screws up here that need to be taken out. And now, yet again, still more, 1, 2 screws here on the side. We're so close, I promise. A couple more things. Screw here on either side to disconnect these exhaust pipes from the bed. And then this on-off switch is double-sided taped to the bed, so you need to pull it off and set it off to the side. Lastly, do disconnect your little extension lead here, and then the whole bed does come up and off. Now we're in business. We have the servo block-off plate that is here. And it's very important now that we pull this out from the bag, which is the new servo horns that we need in order to put this on. So we need to disconnect the rods from each side. And then we can move these rods out of the way, which will let the suspension settle. And then we're going to take these 4 mounting screws off of this plate. I want to pay attention that when I take it off, the center line of the servo spline is actually to the front of the truck, both on both sides. We're going to use these same exact screws to put the new servo right in its place. And then the servo horn that again comes with the truck itself, so you do not need to buy this separately, it's already there. It needs to be put on in the center, but before you do that, you need to know if that servo is centered. So I'm going to mount the other one up, connect everything, and power everything on to make sure the servo is centered before I do that. I'm going to skip forward to that part. We have both servos just physically mounted, and now I am plugging them into the Y harness. And then this Y harness is going to stretch over here to channel 3. Plug it in there. Controllers then on. We're going to find our power switch here. We got a battery plugged in. We're going to power the vehicle on, and you heard the servos move there. If I come over here and hit channel 3 on the controller, they do move. Now, here's the problem. I don't know if that is supposed to be in the up position or if that is supposed to be in the up position. So we're just going to give it a shot. I'm going to leave it in 1. Servos are centered. We're going to put these servo horns on. Basically straight sideways, as close to sideways as we can get. That looks about right. The servos do come with a servo horn and a screw, but it's a little Phillips screw, so I'm just going to raid my parts bin and find something else that'll go in there. Of course, when you are putting a servo on, use some kind of blue thread locker to make sure that it doesn't accidentally loosen up on you. Servo horns are now on, so now it's time to put these links in. Now again, the truck's down on the ground, but you can just simply lift up on it just a little bit, just enough to get it started. Now it looks like this wants to screw into here, which means you're going to need to put some thread locker on it in order to make sure you get a nice, good, vibration-free fasten. Alright, moment of truth. Everything's fired up and... oh, that is surprisingly fun, actually. Maybe this is why people like the Redcat lowriders so much. Pretty sure you could just do that all day long. Now, we could be legitimately done here and just leave it alone. But one thing you want to check on is the end points of that steering travel, because when you do lay it all the way down on the frame, you don't want it trying to exert force on those servos. You don't basically want it trying to like pick the wheels up off the ground. And the same thing when it's up in the air, you can actually set the trim as far as how much that servo throws. In order to do that, we do need to get a little trickery in here with the radio, because this radio is fairly basic and it doesn't have anything just directly on here where we can set it for channel 3. We have to go into the settings and modify it. What you have here on the controller is steering trim, throttle trim, and steering endpoint setting. So with those 3, you can't do anything but channel 3. So what we need to do is, in the instructions it calls it multiplexing. You have to tell the controller that you want to use these buttons for a different button instead of this temporarily. So what we're going to do is we're going to power it on, and when we power it on, we're going to hit the bind button twice within the first second. Now we have the flashy button, green LED flashed. Every time you hit the bind button twice, it changes the mode here. That's a 2. So mode 2 means steering trim is adjusting channel 1 and steering endpoint is adjusting channel 2. If I hit it again, it flashes 3 times. This is now doing a trim for channel 3, and this is doing the endpoint for channel 3. So I'm going to fire up the vehicle and see if we can actually do something with it. So again, confirming normal button switch raises and lowers, but now let's see if I... Oh yeah, look at that. I can actually trim. I can trim the servo. So if I want my even above ride height, let's see what happens. Interesting. Okay, so I probably want to go this way with it. So I don't know if you can actually... I don't know if you can actually see this, but hitting the trim button is actually marching that servo trim over. Now the question is, what about endpoint? So we can do the same thing with the endpoint. Messing with this for a little while, I was able to get it to adjust a little bit. It looks like steering trim will do more as far as centering of the servo goes. And then I could get the steering endpoint to change a little bit, but it was kind of hard. I don't know if I really got it right, if I'm honest. So if you're doing this, I do urge that you try it. And also, after a quick power off, power back on, confirm that the controller does come back into the default mode where steering trim and steering EPA do actually legitimately control the steering. So you don't need to worry about after you've been setting the endpoints, like going back through and resetting it. You can, with a double click of the bind button, you can bring it back to make sure you see one LED blink here, and then you know that you've got it back to where these settings are controlling steering, in fact. But it is actually okay, and if you just power everything off and power everything back on, it comes up in that mode as a default. Here we are now. We are... Oh, looks so good. Now what I need to do is tie these wires up a little bit nicer and neater to make sure that they are out of the way, and get all the body panels off, and then we're going to give this thing a shot. And just like that, there we are. Look at that tire tucked in there. It looks so good. I mean, that's exactly how this truck, I think, is supposed to sit at all times. I mean, it just looks so good. Shout out to Redcat for making this happen. It really takes this whole truck to a whole nother level. Now, I'm going to get to working with a little bit more on this truck. I still have some lighting to put on here, which I'm really excited about. It's going to, again, continue to take this. I have more to do with this truck to continue to take it to the next level. If you're curious about what I'm doing to this truck, there's a playlist popping up to your right over here. You can click on that and see everything that I'm going to do with this. And if you have any questions or comments about what I did here with the airbag setup, then let me know down in the comments, and I'm happy to help you in any way I can. Thank you, and goodbye.